Friday afternoon, folks, downtown Honolulu. Ted Ralston here, your host on Where the Road Leads at ThinkTech Hawaii. And once again, we are bringing to our table two incredibly significant people in the world of drones, UAS, UAV, and this sort of thing in the Hawaii environment. First of all, Mike Elliot from Drone
Thanks,
Services
Ted. Appreciate
Hawaii.
you having me on the show.
First timer on the show. And you, sir, are Chuck Devaney.
Yeah.
Devaney. Okay,
I had to. I wasn't going to be able to remember.
Okay, Chuck is one of our frequent flyers on this show.
Thanks for having me, Ted.
Okay, right on. Thanks for coming. Thanks for taking your time out to come here and talk about this. You know, we keep bringing UAV people to this table all the time, and one of these days we'll have the entire state of Hawaii come to this table sooner or later.
Need a bigger
process
table.
them all through. Well, we'll do that.
Out.
Yeah. Anyway, we had so many things we could talk about. In fact, we spent the last hour talking outside, downstairs, talking about some issues at UH and such that are moving forward in drones, and I'm sure we'll be talking afterwards, which we always do in this show. We talk at the break and talk afterwards as much as we talk at the table. But UAVs are in the news all the time. You saw in the news today that the one-year anniversary of 333 exemptions has passed, and the movie industry is just exploding with the use of drones. And of course, we have that taking place here in Hawaii. But I'd like to introduce Mike to the group here. He's not been here again before. Mike, and you represent the way this has to go. You're actually running working this as a business, with an insurance, with a business plan, with investments and this sort of thing. Tell us a little bit about Drone Services Hawaii and how that's moving forward.
So last year, I had met my partner, George Purdy. He's over on Lanai. And my wife and I, we saw that there was a bit of a need here in Hawaii, that there was really nobody doing anything in the drone industry to bring it to where it needed to be to support personal, commercial, industrial use, research, search and rescue. So we thought that we'd form our business, and we've tried to attack every one of those avenues to work to enhance drone utilization here in Hawaii. And
you're doing it without the one-off type of approach. You have a complete business spectrum and a business offering backed by insurance and backed by
well, exactly. We made sure that we sought out liability protection for flight operations. That covers us when we're actually flying, unlike traditional business insurance, which would not cover that level of
So you take care
activity.
of the special issue associated with drones, and you got that covered.
Exactly.
And you got your 333 about 6 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, just a few weeks back, and we've got a few jobs already lined up, and we're looking forward to knocking them out.
And for folks who may not have paid attention in the past shows, the 333 is just a category within FAA waivers that allows you to actually operate commercially. So you, Mike Elliot, Drone Services Hawaii, can go today in Hawaii and operate drone services per your limitations and such.
We can, within limitations of our exemption, for anything from simple real estate to more complex types of jobs where we're actually assisting with some surveying and panoramic type of work. It just depends on the type of job that you need, and you can contact us. We can take care of it.
We're going to make sure that we put your web address up here. Zuri will take care of that for us at some point in time.
Okay, thanks.
And there it is right there, droneserviceshawaii.com. So there you go. And Chuck, we've known each other for 3 or 4 years now, I guess. Started off actually interacting with fixed-wing drones, and you spend more of your time on the fixed-wing side of the house than on the quadrotor side of the house. You got some pretty big news coming, right? What you're going to be up to?
Yeah.
Certainly.
So a lot of the, we started up our kind of research and development into the open source application of drones, I guess 2011, end of 2010. Of course, started off with kites, and now that's kind of evolved into where we've been doing a lot more conservation and capacity building in developing countries. The next thing coming up is Concepcion, Bolivia, for Forests of the World. So there's a lot of illegal logging that we're going to be mapping, and vegetation type stuff going on there.
So you'll be showing up down there in a couple of weeks. Equipment's going to show up down there.
It's already there.
All right. How large is your group?
There's going to be about 4 people, and then we're going to have a kind of a workshop component where we'll kind of, there's one thing about safely operating the aircraft, but there's a huge component in making sense of the data that it collects as well. So we're going to kind of put the whole thing together and kind of get them to a state where they can actually
building equipment.
No, it's all done. So, with all the ITAR restrictions, we can't really ship any of our own aircraft that we develop. So we have a partner in Malaysia who builds to our specs using Chinese components, and they ship from Malaysia to wherever in the world most of those places.
So you'll
don't have
collect
those
all
resources.
that in Bolivia in this case,
already-
assemble it,
yep, it's already
and
there.
train the people into the fabrication, into the safe operation. And
Yeah,
into the
there's some
analysis.
maintenance stuff that we include. You know, obviously, they're not going to be builders. It takes some time to figure that all out, but at least they'll be able to troubleshoot, or at least be able to refer to information where they can troubleshoot, and then, you know, keep things going that
Cool.
way.
This will be
Company
fundamentally
out
fixed
of
way.
Denmark that's
Okay.
putting the whole thing
So you're
together.
going to be generating information at the mapping level
Mm-hmm.
and observe change detection, observe trends and such,
Mm-hmm.
and use that to help decision makers, law enforcement as it may be,
Mm-hmm.
or environmental people decide what the next steps might want to
Yep.
be. Cool.
It's that post-processing piece. I think that's something that gets lost. A lot of people look at the drone,
Amen.
you know, and
Yeah, no
whatever
kidding.
type it is. And I've talked to some folks recently, and I said, just consider the drone a pickup truck.
It's a skyhook.
That's it.
It's a tool.
And it's the post-processing, it's the power of the post-processing tools that are out there available to you that allow for, you know, Chuck's project to make it meaningful. It's not just taking pictures and video, but it's what do you do with it in the end.
Exactly.
And, you know, that's where the power is. And that programming piece, that's something that can be done here. You know, University of Hawaii students could tackle that project and develop new and exciting means of post-processing analysis.
You know, there's a social issue associated with this as well that we discovered in the Philippines a couple of years ago. That is, if you start having this kind of capability available in the small two-man in a truck unit, you start changing what the ConOps, you start changing the way that the system interacts, because the more you provide locally available information that's accurate and useful in terms of immediate mission planning, the more it starts decentralizing that command and control structure. And so we have these very rigid ICS-based structures, and they're going to have to alter a bit, just as everything is beginning to alter to adjust to the variable information coming in through social media. And that's unstructured, unscheduled, and the same is kind of true here. So we're sitting on the bubble here of some new emerging ability to rapidly react faster, and react perhaps more accurately, locally. But it's different from how we do it today, where we have everything manned centrally. So as we get into the world of search and rescue, and the world of even environmental management, we're going to have that social change. In fact, you'll be in the middle of that. How does that work, Don? That's an interesting question, Chuck. How's that going to work in Bolivia for you?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't honestly know exactly how that's going to work. There's always concerns for bringing new technology to an area that may not have seen it, and obviously they have not seen it. It always draws a crowd. There's always security involved when you're dealing with that sort of thing. So I don't honestly know exactly how that's going to work yet, but maybe I'll come back on a future show.
You know, just for
and tell
Mike's
you about how
benefit,
it went.
and for other people who haven't heard you talk before, talk a little bit about that first trip down to the Philippines. I'll do my part of it, and then you can do your
Oh,
part.
you mean like the
But-
very first trip? Because there was a total of 3, right?
Well, I'm talking about the very first one,
The very
right.
first trip, when you showed up to the airfield
I
and
went to
said,
the airfield,
why are
said,
you
"Chuck."
not prepping?
Chuck, this is Tuesday. Chuck, you want to go to the Philippines on Friday? We have a call and a need, and it's all set. And he said, sure. I went to the field on Wednesday. Chuck, why are you here at the field? You ought to be packing because you're leaving on Friday. He said, is that real? It's real.
Yeah.
2 days away, Chuck, you're out of here.
Yeah. I got there late at night. I got to Cebu City, Lapu-Lapu, and got set up in the hotel, and it was late at night. I woke up in the morning. The first thing I did was go out on the street, and I just watched everybody go to work. And it was just amazing, just the amount of people that were there. And then we took a trip up to Bago, and that was 3 weeks after the hurricane. Everything was leveled, but what was amazing to me was the resilience of the people. I mean, they were already on it. It wasn't the first time they got their house blown down. No. But how receptive they were to the fact that we were there to help them gain information, to rebuild their infrastructure was amazing. So each barangay that we worked in has a captain. And each one of those captains would come forward, and he looks just like everybody else, normal person, but he's the barangay captain. And he's like, no, don't launch a recover here. We'll go to the top of that hill right there. And we go through a few gates, and all of a sudden we have like a clear picture. So they were very, very receptive of it. And we were in a pretty rural area of northern Cebu, which was absolutely beautiful. It was absolutely amazing. It was like one of the best experiences that I've ever had.
And this is part of this impetus in doing search and rescue drones that we had done. I think, we had talked before, my wife's family's from the Philippines. When the Tacloban typhoon went through, this whole thing of why couldn't local people be self-sufficient, start their own search and rescue before international folks come. Our family that lives there has told us numerous times, if it doesn't rise to the level of national response, there is no one that comes. It's local community, like Chuck was saying, it's local people picking up and just doing it themselves. So putting some of these tools in their hands and actually allowing them to do this is a tremendous opportunity. And that's one of the things that kind of motivated us.
That's pretty cool. And that's the experience you had in the Philippines sets you perfectly in place to go take care of this emerging situation.
Exactly. And then probably about the second week that I was there, I started getting a call from one of our colleagues, Matt Kua, and out of Ateneo de Manila, they were very capable, but the problem was they just couldn't get to enough places. There's so many remote places, remote islands that people just probably even to this day still haven't been able to reach out to. But it was an amazing response. It was absolutely amazing. But then when we got to Tacloban, that was a completely different experience. It was more like not so drone-oriented or drone-driven. It was more NGO-driven. So it was like when we would go down through the main strip of Tacloban, it was like a shopping mall of NGOs.
NGOs.
All with a banner saying Mabuhay, the whole thing. And then I also realized that, do you remember meeting Julian Teodoro? He actually is a drone pilot for the United Nations. He was there a week before in Cebu, flying, I think he had a SenseFly or an MP Vision or something. But the capability is there. It's just been, somewhat centralized to different locations, but it doesn't necessarily give the local people that capacity to be able to deal with that situation on their own. And it's not so much these low frequency, high impact, we've talked about this, low frequency, high impact events such as Haiyan. It's a lot of the high frequency, low impact.
24/7 disasters.
20 inches of rain that doesn't make the news. It didn't make national news.
So my father-in-law, same thing, he would sit there and tell us how again and again, no one ever comes from local government. He is the de facto mayor, sheriff, judge, and they just pick up and they go from there. So, this type of technology in local communities just enhances their ability to recover. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. In fact, we're getting that question here too. Margie's part of the Waimanalo HARP, and we're both part of CERT and such. And we keep getting asked the question again and again. Clem Jung, if you're watching, you're one of the question askers all the time. How do we take in Hawaii here, even regarding all the rules and constraints we have, in that first 15 minutes before the cavalry arrives, or maybe the first hour or two, whatever it might be, how do we crowdsource the community to get information that is going to be useful? And a lot of people have drones out there in various forms.
So that's a bit of a challenge. This is something we'll have this meeting here soon, but to talk about. But there's a way that this can be done, but it also has to be trained to, and that integration with first responders from police, fire, civil defense, and even the National Guard level, so that they're aware of these types of operations and that airspace is deconflicted. But it can be done. People can be trained, and they can be community first responders providing this information back to civil defense using an off-the-shelf type of drone.
And that's what Chuck's experience in the Philippines was, and you'll have more when you come back from Bolivia. So we'll expect you to provide a lot of social guidance.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the state of the infrastructure, right? So how are you going to move that information? And that was a big bottleneck that we had when we were in Bago. It's like, okay, we have tons of data, but it was more of a test case, right? So we were handing it off. We were working with the Air Force at the time. So we were kind of just handing off that information to the Philippine Air Force, and they dealt with it as they could. But we were also working with DWSD and some of their local social networks. So this not social network, but social departments. This very discussion goes right to the discussion we were having before the meeting down at the coffee shop, and that is, how do we construct like a research and development matrix, a tapestry of all the R&D elements that are needed in order to bring this industry to the direction, to the level and the power that it has to get to. But we'll talk about that when we get back from our first break. But before we go on our break, we've noticed here that this is the first time our table has been graced by racing drones. We've had search and rescue drones here. We've had fixed wing mappers. We've had military standard task force drones, but we've got racing drones on this time. And we'll talk about what that means to this entire domain when we get back from our first break.
Sounds good.
Hi, my name is Stan Osserman.
Cool.
I
So give us
host
a
a
minute.
show every Friday here on ThinkTech Hawaii called Stan the Energy Man. We talk about everything energy, from anaerobic digesters to batteries to hydrogen fuel cell and grid power. And we do that to keep you informed on the latest technology that's out there and the things that are going on in Hawaii. We broadcast every Friday from noon until 1 o'clock, and I hope you'll tune in. So sometimes we'll be on ThinkTech, and sometimes we'll be on Olelo Channel 54, and I'd like you to listen in to me and join me every Friday. We'll see you then. Aloha.
Aloha! How you doing? It's me, Angus McTech, wishing you to welcome and join us to see us on Hibachi Talk on ThinkTech Hawaii. Join my co-hosts, Gordo the Tech Czar and Andrew the Security Guy, every Friday from 1300 to 1345. We look forward to seeing you. We'll talk tech and we'll have some wee bit of fun. And remember, let your wing gang free wherever you be. Aloha!
We're back live, folks, here downtown Honolulu, Friday afternoon. Must be about the 9th of October by now. Ted Ralston here in ThinkTech Hawaii Studios, where the road leads, with one of our numerous discussions on this fascinating and tantalizing future of drones and here in Hawaii, and of course in the people who make them happen. Mike Elliot, first time around the show.
Thanks
Chuck,
again.
a seasoned veteran and our global traveler who really has inspired me, frankly, Chuck, and what you've been doing. And I don't think he doesn't understand the word no. He is just like those professional drone racers. He does not get the concept of no.
Yeah.
Speaking of the drone racing, what we have on the table here, courtesy of Mike, is two examples of very high performance racing drones.
Yeah, and we were lucky enough to have some of the Drone Nationals guys from Drones World. You can look them up. They're on our page or on Facebook and check out some of the videos from some of the stuff they've been doing. Some of the most incredible flying you will ever see. Competitors, but best of friends too at the same time. Racing drones, it offers a bit of an opportunity for a nexus of education and to that science, math, and engineering. We talk about STEM quite a bit. I think part of the problem with education, there isn't always an end state of where does it go. There's numerous designs that are available, but if kids were involved in drone racing, it actually ties a lot of these focus points together and maybe leads to a point where they actually are seeking a degree in college in some of these fields that actually make some of this various technology. But they're learning and they don't really realize they're learning. So,
I think
the
drones the racing really provides a great focal point and a great way that engineering and the materials and such all have to come together. These are not your father's drones. These things are 80 miles, 90 mile per hour, extremely maneuverable systems flown by people with goggles. So you get the cognitive decision making in a dynamic changing environment, and you got to deal with outages of the video or the screen situation and still not complete the mission.
So, we have, carbon fiber. A few years back, carbon fiber was such a rarity. It only existed in maybe aircraft or certain places. Now it's, in something that is a racing item. Camera systems that allow, FPV, first-person view camera capability for the operator. The ESCs and flight controllers, very complex pieces of electronics that there's no rudders, elevators, wings. It's just these propellers that control the motion and movement through that stick input. So really awesome stuff.
And not only that, these things are extremely durable. The experience I had on Lanai for 2 days last week and then on Oahu for a day was that the people have learned to make these things extremely damage tolerant and extremely user tolerant, so that you can abuse them and they still come back. They may break a prop, change the prop in 5 minutes, and go on your way again.
Yeah, that seemed to be the common theme, was lots and lots of props. But these things would tumble out of the sky while they're racing, take a few cartwheels, they go pick it up, replace some props, dust it off, make sure the camera was aligned right, and get it back right up flying again.
And so there's a lot we can take from this in exactly the same way that the Indy 500 is where automobiles have been developed the last 70 years. You've got the track there that operates 24/7, 365, doing engineering development of tires and engines and chassis and structural analysis and this sort of thing. Then you have the periodic races that are the focal point, the TV sees. That's the high intensity, infrequent events that we speak of, but the low intensity everyday event is the development that comes on that track. The same exact logic can apply here.
Exactly. We're hoping to help expand drone racing through the islands. There's an event going on Maui this weekend. There's some folks locally here that race on Oahu, a few on the Big Island. We'd like to see a bit of an inter-island competition leading up to that Drones Nationals next October. There's over $100,000 in total prizes available. We'd like to see a local champion. There was a young man over on Maui, Ethan, that we met. Ethan, This guy was an incredible flyer.
He's
He got picked
14.
up, 14 years old.
Yep, he's being sponsored now,
He
isn't
got
he?
picked up by Lumineer as a sponsor for their team. Was an incredible flyer. I think those guys were sweating a little bit and they were worried. But so we have some local talent here. We'd like to see more of it, and we'd like to see a local Hawaii winner for the first time that this is going to be here in the islands.
And the cream of the crop will be coming to Hawaii October of next year.
October of
We
next year.
don't quite have the sites picked up. Certainly Kualoha and Oahu will be a part of it. And
Right,
I
there
trust
was
Lanai will be part
A
of that as
number
well.
of site surveys that they did, checking out, working on a short list. They'll make the announcement. You can go to their website and check it out. Check them out on Facebook, Twitter. They're posting stuff
Drone
up there
World?
all the time. Drone Worlds and the Drone Nationals.
Can we get that up, Zuri? Drone World, Drone Nationals.
Right.
Okay, just put the words up there. So anyway, the whole idea is there'll be 300 competitors from around the world will come together next year, plus their support team. So you're looking at 1,000 people or so that this brings in, which sounds like tourism. And it sounds like something that DBED should be thinking about and interested in. But it also is it's like Silicon Valley on the road. These people are all Silicon Valley. They're like Chuck. You know, they don't understand, no. They work 24/7. They make things happen. And when something breaks, you fix it and go on and do it better. And it's just incredible to be around them because it rubs off.
Yeah.
If we can have that rub off on the kids, rub off on our leaders.
Well,
And
we saw that infectious
Yeah.
nature with some of the, these guys are not prima donnas in any way. They are everyday kind of guys that were out there flying, and they were talking to all the locals about showing them how to do stuff and fix things and how they set theirs up, and just sharing information back and forth. And that would be really great to see, building some teams. Everybody can't fly, but maybe you can build a team where you've got your pit crew.
that impressed me as well. You know, we had these guys who have incredible hand-eye coordination, first of all. They have incredible visual identification of the circumstance coming at 80 miles per hour in the trees, for example. And they're able to do the physical response, the mental response, and then at night they fix stuff all night long. They take it apart and fix it and cut the carbon and change the motors and whatnot.
Sit there and watch videos from the day flying and laugh at each other's near misses with with a low-lying tree or a bush. But yeah,
Beyond that aspect of the attention gathering and the focal point is all this engineering has to come together. What struck me, and Chuck, going back to our past experience where we've dealt with relatively low-powered systems that are designed for optimization, they're optimized for long missions and this sort of thing. These are designed for extremely high-intensity short missions. The performance margins in these things in terms of rate of climb, in terms of wind, I'm guessing we could probably operate in 50-knot winds, and these wouldn't know the difference.
I know the first day we were on Lanai, we went to one area, and the wind gusts were at least 40 miles an hour. And these guys had no problem. So a
Right.
well-trained operator, not a problem. We even had Ruben from Sweep Wings out there with his flying wings. He's got some incredible flying wings, and that's another area of this too. Drone racing is with these wings, and he was out there also just swooping around and making it look so easy.
So if we can operate these things in 40-knot winds, and they still have performance margin above that, this is the sort of thing we have to think about for disaster operations and search and rescue. We can't say we can't do a search and rescue, we can't do disaster ops because the wind is blowing too strong. You can't do that. The wind, precipitation, turbulence, those things, we have to blow through them. The kind of power margins we have in systems like this, coupled with the speed that they can run at, means the collection rate of information is extremely high. And because there is so much performance margin, you can have very precise control operation. You can get by with simple cameras.
So this is maybe where it comes back into Chuck's realm with some your research, and we talk about this R&D piece, is swarm technology, where you take, you launched 20 little drones like this, you tell them a bounded geofenced area that you want them to search, they just independently search that area, and all they're doing is providing that data back to you.
And in real time.
In real time, exactly. And
Yeah, I thought that was really useful, especially seeing some of that stuff where they, going down gullies. For example, your victim is caught in one of those gullies.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be able to identify that really, really quick with something like this. I thought that would be very applicable.
Exactly, because the fixed wing we fly around here with the extreme topography we have in Hawaii with the vertical orientation and such, you're flying at maybe 100 feet over the ridge, but you're flying at 500 feet over the valley, even 100 feet out or so. Because
Exactly.
it's so steep.
Yeah.
And
These
if you
things-
did identify, it's not like you can just stop something in forward motion like a fixed wing. you can actually stop this and hover, identify the geographic location. and
These
then
guys can go right down the center of the steep valley.
Yeah, I saw it.
And
It's
stop
pretty amazing.
if you want to
Yeah,
stop
it
and
was-
have,
it
take
was
a look at
amazing.
it, drop something off, as you
Yeah.
were suggesting.
Yeah, something I
give a
wanted to bring up
message.
too with this this technology and the whole racing component is it's really kind of bringing back the whole hobbyist aspect, which I really get scared that we'll get lost. You know, I think about 4 years ago when we started inundating the Kwainui field. All the guys were out there with their quarter scales, all the retired guys, and you don't see them much anymore out there. I don't know if they've gone and moved on, but I really dig this because
So the RTFs have blown them away?
yeah. Exactly. So
But,
it's nice to see the
yeah,
hobbyist.
The other thing is too, you've got a lot of youth that has a lot of hand-eye coordination. They're playing their Xbox, PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
They're collaborating with a friend of theirs halfway around the world online. A lot of those same skills translate right over to something like this, and you're getting them outside, but you're also, now it's something that you have to maintain and take care of, and you've got to get a little bit deeper into the technology. But it's some of those same skill sets, and you could, like I said, it gets people outside. Gets
And if
kids
we could take
outside.
that experience, as you say, it brings the skill sets together, and then take that and distill it and take it into the other areas. That's what interests me, is getting it into the R&D domain, getting it into the public safety, and into the public service, and into the humanitarian assistance and
Exactly.
disaster operations.
Those guys are so good. You
Various-
could probably take this thing into a burning building.
Absolutely, you could, yeah. I mean, we're talking about flying at 80 miles per hour between two trees that are 3 feet apart and thinking nothing of it. So how do we take that cognation that they've got
And harness it?
And harness it, because what we also have to do in terms of search and rescue and those things is we have to get the specialists out of it. We have to package this stuff, including the operating software and this sort of thing, so it can make decisions on its own. And because we can't afford to put people forward who aren't part of the response team. You put them forward, you got to feed them, water them, protect them. They could become part of the problem. And so.
Well, there are
that's
LiDAR sensing units that are getting smaller and smaller that actually
Mm-hmm.
can act as obstacle avoidance and fly indoors. I've seen a couple of examples of that.
The
Chris
LiDAR light.
Bays showed us one, they didn't tell was present.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are some that are out there. And pretty soon what you're going to see is, you'll be able to fly indoors. You'll be able to launch something that allows it to maneuver itself around through open passageways. And once again, provide that video link, and maybe that becomes another tool for firefighters.
And the place it'll show up first is in the drone racing.
It probably will.
And then we'll take it and translate it over to the fire side.
Or on some of the work, that is going on in Bolivia.
Yeah.
Next time around, yeah.
The whole history of aviation's that way. Things show up
Yeah.
first in sports equipment, then in cars, and finally in airplanes. Because of the certification issues and such that, and reliability that's required for that. The same will be true here. But we can use the drone sporting industry as a way to avoid that consequential issue, and yet develop the technology and the skill and human interaction with the systems.
So tying it back to, to getting to that point, a piece of that is obviously that education piece. We think that the drone racing tied with, just that application of education and building a bit of a drone racing community here in the islands, and having that Drone Nationals event next year is a kind of a focus or a goal to have a chance at winning a portion of that prize money or be the top champion, is a great way to get youth of the islands, or even older folks like myself. I'm still having a hard time flying these. They're so fast.
Yeah, there's a point where you want to sit back and let the young kids take care
That's
of
why
it, Mike.
That's why Ethan,
Right,
14
exactly,
years
right.
old, putting everybody to shame. But where you tie education into something that they don't realize they're learning, and then there's that nexus of understanding that takes place through technology, and that, like I said, leads to where we want to be, maybe here in Hawaii, where we're actually able to, design, manufacture, program, and be. George and I have used this phrase, why can't we be the Kitty Hawk of the Pacific for the drone industry? There's no reason that we can't do that here in Hawaii.
And so much of this is software. I mean,
It is.
there's so much in here that is going to be computational intelligence, if you will, not artificial intelligence, and supplementing human operations and such. And there's no better place in the racing world to develop all that.
Yeah.
Again, that's where we get everything in our cars. It came from the racing game.
Yeah.
So this is a great thing that you've been effective in getting started, and of course, thanks to the guys at Drone World who
Well,
are
I
behind
had
this.
Scott and all the guys that came out. Wow, I mean, you
Yeah.
guys were blew us away with your skills, and just the new friends that we made. George, Ellen, and I are just very thankful to have met all of you, and we look forward to you coming back.
You're speaking to the Drone World gang and such, who I hope they're watching out there. Now, Bruce
send it
Sigan
to
was
them.
on the show last week. He said he'd be able to come on every couple of months and we'll give an update on how things
Okay.
are going towards October of next year. Locations and videos and what's happening in other places that are influencing us. And Chuck, we'll trust Chuck to bring back the story from South America and Bolivia and maybe even
Seychelles.
plant the seed in some of those guys down there to get them involved in this as well. We had Spain here, we had
Right.
Australia this last week.
Denmark, Australia,
Denmark.
big in Australia.
I don't think
Yeah.
we had anybody from South America.
Not that I know of, but
So,
I'm sure it might
It does
be.
exist,
Blossom.
not where I'm going,
Yeah.
but it does exist down
Okay.
there.
Okay, this is cool. So we were, at the end of the first session, we talked about everything but the drone racing. We spoke on this last session about everything, about just drone racing. And at the next session, after the next period here after our next break, we'll talk about how these come together
Sure.
in terms of research and development, educational programs, and maybe talk about how people can get involved
Okay.
after our next break.
Hi, I'm Ethan
Okay,
Allen,
give us a
and
minute.
I host Likeable Science on ThinkTech Hawaii. And I do this because I care about science literacy in Hawaii. I want to spread the understanding that science is a vital and interesting part of everyone's life. I want to make sure the broadest possible spectrum of people understand the beauty and the value of science and realize that science plays out each and every day of their lives. I want you to understand that science is fun. So we bring onto this show each week guests who are scientists, from astronomers to zoologists, and we talk about what they do and how they do it. But most importantly, we talk about why you should care about their work, why you should see that their work has value and impact on your life. So I hope you'll join us Fridays, 1 p.m. here on ThinkTech Hawaii. You can watch us via live stream. You can watch us recorded on Olelo, and you can see us each week. We hope you'll join us.
3, 2. Friday afternoon, folks. Once again, still Friday down here in Honolulu. Ted Ralston here, hosting our show, Where the Road Leads. And we don't even have a name for this episode because it's impossible to name it. It is all about drones is what it's all about. Mike Elliot, once again, first timer, and Chuck Devaney has been here many times before. I just want to make sure that we get an update from Chuck, not just on the trip to Bolivia, but on the business you're in, so to speak, or the pursuit you've got besides just making these trips. Tell us a little bit about what's behind your trip to Bolivia.
Okay, so thankful to, current technology, contemporary technology, the internet, we've been able to identify individuals like Brendan Duffy, Leon Pinco, Serge Wick, and others who have been a part of conservation drones. So they contacted me and said, hey, we are trying to put together programs. We've got a lot of different stuff coming up, but we need somebody who can teach somebody how to operate and make sense of the information in 5 days. So we put together, some syllabi, some different programs, just kind of based on, the needs, and something that's relatively, modular, something that we can change easily based on those, I guess, a skill set of the current. Sometimes you come in and you're working with people that really can't navigate Windows that well. So those can turn into long days. So I've been to, Canada a couple of different times. I spent a lot of time in the Philippines. So basically, that formulated a business to where we have a company now called Ready to Drone, which is
Ready to Drone. Ready
to
with the number
Drone.
2 drone.
No, just to TO.
Ready
altogether.
to Drone.
Yeah, we have a
we need to get
website,
that up on the screen,
readytodrone.com.
Zuri. Readytodrone.com.
And then also might put a shout out to conservationdrones.org. And that's Leon Pinco. I don't remember, or I remember, but I'm not sure if you guys remember a TED Talk about 3 years ago, where there's an individual from Indonesia that kind of went on and said, when the first APM started coming out and the whole autonomous drone section started working and the whole mapping component they did a bunch of stuff in Africa, working with Jane Goodall, doing some orangutan nest monitoring, stuff like that. So they just kind of brought me on and said, hey, you're single, you don't have any children, you don't have anything
don't
holding you back,
understand
can you
no.
go travel the world? I don't know the word no, apparently. Can you go to all of these places and help capacity build? And I said, sure.
So you've kind of described what we saw last week with the drone guys, the drone racing
Exactly.
guys. It's basically a Silicon Valley orientation. Nothing gets in your way. You can do anything from the mechanical work to the design work to the, but most important, to the image analysis and the information exploitation extraction side, which, as Mike said earlier, we often forget. Because at the end of the day, these are skyhooks, and it's the information that they generate that enables decision makers to do something, or the population for that matter.
Sure, and you got to think about it in a budget that a developing country or a developing program can afford, and then be able to replicate. So I can't say, hey, the software you need is going to cost you $9,000. The platform is going to cost you $20,000, and then have them be able to go out and replicate that. And another thing that's nice, we, you know, like I said earlier, we're doing more open source stuff, so we need to be able to like cannibalize and cockroach our systems to make one work. We might have 2 downed aircraft, but we got to get one working. So how do we do that? So we can take an autopilot out of a copter and be able to put it into an airplane, change the firmware, take a couple of test flights, and we're back up and running. It's not like you can. Sometimes we don't even have internet access.
So you're talking about software. We were actually approached by a new company that has a cloud-based software tool. They're interested in partnering with us and basically having customers just utilize what they need, buy kind of what they need, almost like you used to have to buy minutes for a cell phone. You only want to look
A la
at
carte,
la
drones a la carte.
right, to get away from that point of buying some of these software items that are thousands and thousands of dollars for a license, and if you don't use it every day, you
Yeah, it just sits
aren't
there.
very skillful at it. So why not put it into this software tool? You can get what you want out of it. You just use what you need, and it's a great way to do it.
That's almost like software as a service. It's almost like drones as a service, as opposed to getting so tightly embedded with a particular configuration.
Right.
In fact, that's also something we have to think about. The change is so rapid in terms of miniaturization, reliability, accuracy, and even the software, even the analytic software is getting, like ICE is free. Microsoft ICE is
Yeah, and it's
free.
getting
They
better.
can do it. Yeah, it's
There's
getting way
another one
better.
out there called AirPhoto SE, which actually uses ICE. And it uses a bundler. I don't know how much literature you've had the opportunity to review, but a lot of the guys that I did my lit review on when I went through grad school is a part of that program. It's called AirPhoto SE, and it's a really sweet program. Check it out.
So once again, the steamroller is moving in terms of how capability is moving so fast. So things become obsolete fairly quickly.
Very quickly.
And having a business model, and you're in business, you're both in business, but you can't get stuck in a situation where you have something that's going to be a stone around your neck. You have to be dynamic and flexible. And so finding that proper balance between services, operations, and systems and fabrication is something very fascinating. A year from now, you'll know a lot more than you know now, Mike.
Well, the thing that's really been great for us is that we're seeing in industry, a lot of these sensor technologies are getting smaller, lighter, using less power. A couple of years, or about a year ago or so, we were looking at LiDAR and how we could possibly use LiDAR. But then we saw how expensive the units were, how heavy they were.
You only get one return.
And they just weren't cost effective for what they were trying to sell. But those units have actually gotten a lot cheaper. They've gotten smaller. You can put them on. You can fly a lot longer. And then once again, the processing piece of the software, you're able to produce some really high quality output images if LiDAR is your option for what you want to use.
You know, the same thing is taking place in other areas. Chuck and I were just talking yesterday about thermal infrared and how that is falling in price by 50% per year in terms of its
Oh yeah, I mean, I
availability,
just
small
built a
scale.
unit for a customer 4 months ago, and they've already come out with something that just like almost chopped
So
chopped
4
in
months.
half.
So in 4 months, the price points cut in half
Yeah.
on that highly competent.
Yeah,
IR
for what
system.
they needed. So I mean, they couldn't do the video side. They actually had to have temperature logged, and so it was hard to use some of the units that were going to be more affordable. But yeah, 4 months later, it was like now we're back.
And it's a software
So,
solution. I mean, that's what we're seeing with one of our partners. What they did was they did a software update and was able to utilize the same camera, but the software was the power. Once again, that post-processing piece to make it do what you want it to do, make the hardware do what you want it to.
And there's, that then opens the door to where the R&D is going. There's a whole faction out here at the table. We got to get him here sometime. Dilmerat, if you're watching, it's you and others. But there's a whole process thought that wants to get a lot of this decision making and such on board, including determining what the point to collect the imagery is based on onboard reasoning as opposed to having, so it basically becomes closed loop scheduling on the mission rather than open loop planning on a bunch of waypoints. And right now we're in the waypoint domain, but getting beyond that then starts getting the guy out of the picture and let the system take care of itself with the human providing supervisory oversight.
And that's, in our search and rescue side that we're doing with our Drone Service US, we got our first drone from the ground up that we've built coming. But one of the things we're looking at very much so is let the drone do the mission, let the people on the ground do the analysis with the sensors just sensing the environment in whatever spectrum it may be, so that you're not spending the time so concentrated on flying the drone. Let the drone just go where it needs to go, do what it needs to do.
Based on the mission it's trying to accomplish.
But yeah, right, so you have, yeah, exactly. So you execute that mission, that data's coming back down to you, and then you can quickly get people in the right direction for first responders or out doing search. We see this as, especially in the wintertime back in the Northeast, every year there's a kid that goes out the back door at 2 in the morning and nobody can find. Wouldn't it be great if a police officer could show up with a drone, with a thermal camera, pop that thing in the air and quickly identify within a mile radius of that house where this kid is at.
And actually have the system self-identify where those targets are.
Exactly.
Because it's unreasonable to ask that officer to have that training to understand what the background temperatures are and how to sort that all out.
Yeah.
He needs an arrow pointing saying, look here.
All right, and that's a software solution.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that does roll back to our little friends here, the drone racers, because things that can enhance the decision-making and the faster operation of the drone in terms of assisting the operator with better visuals or better coordination or something like that to get the speed up would be the exact kind of things we're thinking about in operations for disaster operations, for example. And what we were thinking of is that when we have the competition next year, maybe an interesting approach would be to have the people involved in a competition take a step away from the competition for a minute and talk about search and rescue, talk about shark sightings, talk about life saving.
Oh,
and
exactly.
how would they apply what they know from their perspective, which isn't mine, isn't yours, and isn't yours. From their perspective, how would they think of combining these capabilities in order to do that job better? It would be so refreshing to have that happen in front of us.
We should send somebody to the Outback Challenge in Australia, and that's kind of what it's all about, finding Outback Joe. And usually the 3DR guys are the ones that kind of clean up on that, Tridge and those guys, and they're all right there in Australia, but that's a big one.
I
And
think
wouldn't be
we
a
could
bit
throw down on
surprised.
that. We were approached, some folks up in northern Australia about a search and rescue drone. Maybe we could do that. I'll
Let's,
get back and
Yeah,
I'll
think
get
about
with
the
you.
Outback Challenge.
Okay.
I think that's where we could actually shine right there. So
Okay.
we've been talking to folks up in Darwin area for our do search and rescue, but maybe we could do that. Yeah.
We've kind of come to the end of almost the end of our last segment here. The show goes faster than you can possibly imagine. You still got many, many things you wanted to say. We'll get you on again, Mike. Same Chuck when you get back.
Thanks for
We
saying
got
hi,
we
Drone
got a
Deploy.
couple treaters
and
out there. We got Red Tree Robotics.
Thanks,
We got
guys. Yeah.
Drone Deploy. Thanks for checking in with this gang. And love to hear your thoughts and comments. But what we always do is ask our guests to say what they'd like the audience to take away. You got about a minute or so to do your piece. So we need to know how to get a hold of you.
Okay,
And
so
what message you want them to take away.
Our business here, Drone Services Hawaii, currently we're an online business, but it allows us to be flexible and get out around the islands. We do personal, professional, commercial types of drones. We're a 333 exempt company. We work with other professionals here in the islands. We'll come help you if you need some help. We also do repairs. We're trying to help get some of the drone racing started. Like I said, we had those guys out here. We're excited because we see the nexus of education and technology here in Hawaii. We really believe that there's a possibility of, like I said, turning Hawaii into that Kitty Hawk of the Pacific for drones for the future.
And
for
you're a good
design,
role model for the way to do
programming.
business right, with a proper business base, a proper insurance, and proper coverage, so
Right,
that people can be trusted and assured they're going to get what they expect.
Right, it was a bit of a difficult process. We worked with the
Must be.
FAA.
I would imagine the FAA and
But
insurance
trying to
companies.
get things right and do them safely. I mean, that's the key right there,
Okay.
because drones offer a degree of safety, time saving, money saving, and not putting people's lives at risk for difficult jobs.
Chuck.
Well, everything that Mike said was pretty much
Okay.
spot on, and I always forget about this part of the show where I have to come up with this and I have to think about that. So anyway, fly safe out there. As far as like what I do, I'm really into capacity building. I love to teach, I love to educate, I love to build, I love to solve problems using this technology. If you are getting into the mapping component, please minimize forward propagation of error.
I love
Check
it.
your work. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have the shiniest data out there, just tell us what the error is.
Okay, that's great. And then from my perspective, I think that we have a great opportunity here to collect among all of us in the network we deal with what the R&D dimensions are that need to be established in order for this business to go forward at the rate it's gone and remain safe and reliable and a good, sustainable business. Now, that's what I really want to get out of this, out of our larger group. What's that R&D look like? And work that with UH.
Yeah. There's things within industry, there's things within the FAA that they want to see. There's no reason we can't do those here in Hawaii.
And we can collect all that information and start that ball rolling. Michael,
Can do.
thanks for coming on for the
Thanks,
first
Ted.
time. And Chuck, have a successful and
Mike,
safe trip to Bolivia.
Right, yeah,
Appreciate it.
it's
Yeah.
fun.
And
Hopefully
folks,
you make it
our
back.
tweeters, thanks very much.
Yep.
And then all you out there, we'll see you next Friday.
Aloha.